Hello, good day to one and all. This is Miss A. Krishna Sundar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KAHM Unity Women's College, Mancheri. Today, we are going to discuss the play The Man Who Turned into a Stick, written by Kobo Abe. Let's start with a few biographical details of the writer. So, here comes Kobo Abe, the Japanese writer. This Japanese writer Kobo Abe was born in 1924 in Tokyo. He used the name Kimifusa Abe as his pen name. He was a musician, photographer, and inventor. He was in the medical school, and in the year 1948 he graduated with a medical degree. He started writing novellas. Now, a novella is something which is lengthier than a short story, but something that is shorter than a novel. He was someone who witnessed the Second World War. And in the year 1945, he married Maki Yamada, an artist. In the year 1947, he published his poetry collection, Poems of an Unknown Poet. In the year 1962, he published his novel, The Woman in the Dunes, which won international acclaim. In the year 1971, he founded his own studio, the Kobo Abe Studio. In 1993, he passed away because of a heart attack. Abe is often compared to Franz Kafka and Alberto Moravia for the representation of modern man in the contemporary world. Now, coming to the play, The Man Who Turned into a Stick, this was originally written in Japanese and was published in the year 1957. Now, between 1957 and 1969, he composed his first trilogy, and most of these plays were translated to English by Donald Kane. Now, this was first performed in 1967 at Kinokuniya Hall in Tokyo. In 1976, he started his own studio and the play reached a completion. Now, he combined it with two other plays and it was basically a comprehensive set. Now, this is a one act play, but it is not quite an easy play to understand. He did not write for passive audience. He wanted his audience to be in discomfort because he believed that discomfort will definitely make you question. Now, the trilogy includes three different plays. Now, the first that is coming in the trilogy is titled as The Suitcase, and this is a play which deals with birth. The second in this trilogy is titled as The Cliff of Time, and this actually speaks about the process which is life itself. And then comes the third one, The Man Who Turned into a Stick, the play which we are going to deal with, and this play is about death. Now, Abe was often regarded as a playwright who wanted to try new things, experimentation in his plays. So he created avant garde plays, new and experimental in nature, and even surrealistic kind of play. Now, most of his plays were translated by Donald Lawrence Kane. So, before we start with the play, there is something which we should know, and that is magic realism. Because the play includes a lot of elements from magic realism. Now, magic realism is a specific genre, a style of fiction employed in modern works. Now, this is also known as fabulism. Now, this is in fact a sub genre of fantasy. It includes magic or supernatural kind of elements, and these elements would be presented along with realistic elements. Now, magic realism actually came from Latin American literature. Now, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, you can see in the picture, was the one who came up with a lot of elements from magic realism in his works. Gunter Grass, Salman Rushdie, all these names can be added to this particular genre of magic realism. Italo Calvino is also another writer who employed magic realism in his works. So, just to make you understand, this might be a name which is familiar to you. Now, this is a Hollywood movie, and the title of this movie is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. If this is a new name for you, I would definitely recommend this movie for you because this is something which employs magic realism. Now, instead of a child growing from childhood to old age, this is a movie which captures the growth of the child in the reverse order, which is not realistically possible but which is an element of magic realism. Now, this is yet another movie, The Shape of Water, which won the Oscar Award in the year 2017, where a lady falls in love with an amphibious creature which is held as a captive. Moving on, these are some other movies related with magic realism, The Lake House, Perfume, etc. So, coming to the play, let's look at the characters here. Man from hell, woman from hell, both of them belong to the Earth Duty Squad. So we realize that these two characters are not earthly characters, these are people from hell. Now there is a man who has turned into a stick, there is voice from hell, and then comes the hippie boy and hippie girl. So if you look at the characters, all the characters are nameless within the play. Now, hippies, this actually began as a 1960 movement bringing out some unconventional ideals. Now, if you look at the pictures, this can really give you an idea of how these hippies behaved. They usually had long hair and they had an unconventional lifestyle. They used drugs and sometimes they used the musical instrument guitar. Now, what exactly is the play about? Now, this is what the writer says. The more we become free from the framework of reality, the more clearly we get the real experience which corresponds to the fake experience of a dream. So, the main idea of the writer is to shake people from reality and to make them comprehend things around them. So, the stick is personified here. The stick stands for all human beings in this world. The stick is a metaphor here, and the main idea here is to shake people from their fake dream. Now, magic realism. The elements of magic realism were employed in plays which came from Japan. Now, Kobo Abe was one writer who employed these kind of elements of magic realism into the tradition of Japan. Now, moving on to the storyline. So, let's look at the storyline in a very quick way. Now, the play begins in a busy street in summer. It is a hot, sticky Sunday afternoon. Now, there are two characters which can be seen on stage when the play begins. One is a hippie boy and the other one is a hippie girl. Now, as they sit together, suddenly a stick falls from the sky. Now, the conversation is about the stick. The hippie boy feels that he just had a narrow escape, and the hippie girl is also being a part of the conversation. Meanwhile, the other two characters, man from hell and woman from hell, they come to the very same location in search of the stick. The people from hell, they want the stick back because they have come to investigate on the stick and to record the details of the stick. Now, hippie boy and hippie girl, the earthly characters, they doubt the other two people are from the police. Now, according to the people from hell, the stick is actually a man who turned into a stick. Now, there is a conversation that is going on, and all the four characters participate in this conversation: hippie boy, hippie girl, man from hell, and woman from hell. Now, there are lots of monologues happening here from the stick because what the stick speaks cannot be heard by other people. The stick, in fact, is a man who is dead. And now this dead man takes the shape of a stick. So the stick goes on with a lot of monologues, but this is unheard by the other characters. Now, the four characters, they discuss so many things and they speak about generation gap and many other things. Now, in between, there is a child scene, and this is actually the son of the man who turned into a stick. The child is totally confused, and the child is in search of his lost father. The child's father actually became a stick. Now, the man from hell asks for the stick. The hippie boy is reluctant to give the stick, and the hippie boy demands $5 for the stick. Now, finally, the man from hell gives the $5 and he gets the stick. Now they start their investigation regarding the stick and they conclude that the stick was satisfied in his life. Now, soon after this, they continue with the next assignment. Now, what we can see here is that the characters, they break the fourth wall and they claim all human beings sitting here are sticks. So this is a general message to the audience, which is in fact speaking about the human condition. An invisible wall that separates the audience from the actors, this is what you call as the fourth wall. But the play here is actually breaking this fourth wall and commenting on human condition. So this is the totality of the plot. Now coming to the play again, this is an absurd play as well. So coming to the points of theatre of the absurd, which came up in the year 1950 through Martin Eslin's essay. Now, an absurd play means there is no purpose, there is no goal, and there is no objective. Now, this in fact began in the post World War era because people were totally disillusioned. They were totally disappointed because there was a heavy loss of human lives and the severe damage done to the cities and countries. It really made the people very disappointed. So, this began in the post World War era and it started in Europe. Now, human existence lacks meaning. This was the total meaning of the theatre of the absurd. Now, most of the plots will be circular, which means the starting point and the finishing point will be the same, which means the plot will not be progressive. Characters will not have a great change. The play ends at the same point from where it began. So finally, when the audience come out of the theaters, even they might not know what really happened within the play. So it is a clear examination on modern living conditions. Now, Kobo Abe's plays reflect the themes of Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, etc. Now, the play describes the absurdity of life, and the stick stands as a metaphor for all human beings. Magic realism is employed because we find characters from hell, not earthly characters, and brevity of human life is also discussed here. Coming to the next part, existentialism is another important theme coming in the play. Now, Sartre was the one who came up with the theme existentialism. Now, he was a French writer. Now, existentialism, in simple terms, can be considered as a philosophical inquiry exploring the human problem. Now, this actually began with Soren Kierkegaard. You can see the first picture. Again, Dostoevsky, then comes Friedrich Nietzsche, and the last one is Sartre. All these writers and philosophers talked about existentialism. So ultimately, this is about the thinking, feeling, and acting of human beings. So, existentialism, in fact, criticized the rational thinking of people because an individual is a free and responsible agent. And it is they themselves who will be determining their own development and future. So there is no role for gods or fate or governments or people around them. So the play incorporates absurdity, existentialism, problems with communication, and even alienation. So, coming to the questions and answers, answer in two or three sentences. Question number one: what is the setting of the play by Kobo Abe? It is a hot, sticky Sunday afternoon. The play begins at a crowded main road with a terminal store in the background. The first two characters seen on stage are the hippie boy and the hippie girl. Question number two: why was the hippie boy startled when he saw the stick falling? The hippie boy was shocked as he had a very narrow escape. The stick fell very close to him and he realizes that he has been exposed to a dangerous accident. Question number three: what did the man from the hell and the woman from the hell recite? The man from the hell recited a few lines describing the destiny of human beings. The woman from the hell said that one more man has turned into a stick. Question number four: what does the hippie girl do when the hippie boy picks up the stick and began to tap out a rhythm? Unaffected by the background, the hippie girl wiggles her body and starts humming a tune. She is more lively and spontaneous than the hippie boy. Question number five: what did the hippie boy and the hippie girl think about the falling of the stick? The hippie girl believed that it was a small child who threw the stick. The hippie boy agrees to it and adds that the child was disappointed as they did not get hurt. Question number six: how did the audience realize that the stick was the father of the boy? It is from the monologue of the stick that the audience realize that the stick is the father of the boy. The father, who is now turned into a stick, speaks in anguish about his son who is scared. Question number seven: what did the man from hell and the woman from hell assure the hippies? They offered $1 for the stick. They also promised that this $1 will keep them in cigarettes for a while. Question number eight: why does the hippie boy trust the man and the woman? Though he was doubtful initially, he trusted them when he was offered $5 for the stick. Question number nine: what was the answer of the hippie boy about aims? The hippie boy is basically indifferent and egoistic. He said that he is not interested in aims. Question number 10: why does the hippie boy refuse the offer from the man from hell? The man from hell offered $1 initially. The hippie boy refused this offer and demanded $5 for the stick. Coming to paragraph questions, question number one: what is the main theme of the play? So, as we had discussed, you can mention that it is an absurd play because it talks about human condition. You can also mention the proponents of the absurd theater, how it came into effect, And this is indeed a play which talks about the meaninglessness of life, and what happens after death remains as a mystery. So there is also a contrast between earthly and unearthly kind of dimensions. Question number two describes symbolism in the play. So, for this, you have to explain what a symbol is. Now, a symbol is something that stands to represent something else. Now, life is basically described as something that is to be satisfied in different means, but ultimately nobody is satisfied, because this is how human condition works. Now the stick here represents death. The hippies, they represent the new generation so that it can be connected with alienation. Hippie girl who stands as a representative of the subservient group, the second sex, women. Hippie boy who's always dominating throughout the play. Man and woman who are unearthly beings who are deputed for Earth Squad duties. Now, man from hell is described as rational and professional, so definitely he would represent the bureaucracy or maybe the government. Now, the woman stands as a symbol of motherhood. Now, there is again the problem of communication that you can mention between the stick and son, that is between the father and the son, because the father in fact commits suicide. He jumps off from the terrace, and the son is totally scared because the father who commits suicide is getting turned into a stick. Now, question number three, what is the style of narration in the play? So, it is an absurd play, and therefore it is very slow, it is confusing, it is in an avant garde style, which is new and experiential. At the same time, it has elements of science fiction, it has got elements from magic realism. All the characters are nameless, and this will definitely make the audience think. Moving to question number four, comment on the theme of aimlessness in the play. So, once again, you can mention absurd play, hippies, the new generation without any aim. Now, people from hell, they are described as very professional. So, the difference between the professional group and this new generation. Now, there is a scene where the hippie girl is talking about her sister, and that goes like a circular plot. So nothing much really works within the play. It ends in the same way as it began. Question number five, character sketch of man from hell. So this is something which we already discussed. He's quite professional, he is unemotional, and most of his speeches are done in metaphors. He represents the status quo, and he is someone who can handle all the problems quite easily. Question number six, the woman from hell is emotional and sensitive. Comment. Now, she is a newly appointed person to the Earth Squad, but we find her as emotional and compassionate. She treats the stick with a lot of sympathy, and even in the last scene where the stick is left, she is really disappointed at the fate of the stick. Coming to essay questions, question number one, existential elements. This is something which we had already discussed. So we need to discuss what existentialism is in the initial paragraph. Existentialism is a philosophical inquiry which discusses human problems, thinking, feeling, and acting. And human beings are just agents with free will, and nobody can control their fate. So you can also mention the four names, the proponents, like it began from Kierkegaard, then there is Dostoevsky, then comes Nietzsche, and finally Sartre. So you can explain the theory and how it gets connected with the play. Now, elements of the theater of the absurd, which again we discussed, post-war period, which began in European countries, which slowly spread into America and other Eastern countries. Martin Esslin and Albert Camus, who actually came up with their writings in relation with the theater of the absurd. So in totality, it is about the meaninglessness of life. Again, question number 3, elements of alienation. You can again explain what existentialism is, because alienation becomes a part of existentialism. You can mention the character sketches of the hippies, the generation gap, aims, and again the communication problem between the father and the son. How the hippie girl talks about her sister because she is even unable to identify herself at one point. So, with this, we come to the end of this session. So, thank you so much for your patient listening. In case if you have got any doubts or any queries or any suggestions, please do not hesitate to connect with me through my email ID. So, thank you very much. Thank you.